What do you think of when you hear the word aggression? I personally think of two things. Aggressive drivers, like when cars recklessly run red lights, or angry gamers, in this case a bit of a retro gamer. We even have a term for this, don't we? Rage quitting. In Australia, we might even describe this person as getting a bit aggro. But interestingly, according to psychology, neither of these scenarios I described would be officially classed as aggression. It's certainly violent behavior, but technically, aggression is behavior that's directed towards others and intended to cause harm. Of course, if the driver was cutting someone else off, or if the gamer was attacking another player out of anger, then that would be aggression. In some circumstances, aggression might be acceptable, even encouraged. For example, when fighting a common enemy or playing sport. Within the rules, of course. But generally speaking, it's very much considered an antisocial behavior because, by definition, it's intended to cause harm. There are two types of aggression. Hostile aggression, which is emotional, impulsive, and driven by pain or distress. This is usually the example people think of. Like, if a kid hits another kid, they're probably going to get aggressive in response. But then there's also instrumental aggression, which is quite the opposite actually. It's usually when the aggressor has no personal feelings towards the person they're hurting, and it's pre-planned. For example, a pickpocket or a burglar. Aggression doesn't have to include anger or violence. But this is psychology, so you know I'm going to ask this question. What causes aggression? What factors influence aggression? Well, on one hand, it's the same explanation for antisocial behavior, which we explored in a previous video lesson. There are biological and environmental reasons. But on the other hand, there are some factors that specifically seem to affect aggression, like socialization and modeling. The media is known to be a significant influence here, which we'll explore more of in the next lesson. But one common answer to the question of why people seem to be getting more aggressive these days is this. Video games. Oh, back in my day, all we had was Space Invaders and Snake, and today you young'uns have your Call of Duty and Fortnite, and you're just shooting everyone, and no wonder kids are so angry these days. Is that true? Do video games really make people more violent? The answer is complicated. For starters, research suggests that it's actually inaccurate to say video games are nothing but bad. Gaming has been shown to promote the formation of online friendships that are similar to real-life friendships, especially for teens who play popular multi-user games. A 2014 study suggested that online gaming experiences give players opportunities to relate to others in meaningful ways and even reduce stress levels. But how about when you're specifically required to perform aggressive behaviors in-game? First-person shooters literally require you to use weapons to wound and kill others, and advances in technology are constantly trying to blur the line between virtual and real. Well, some researchers suggest that the people who become obsessed with these violent games were more likely perhaps to already have had an aggressive disposition. Indeed, the American Psychological Association in 2015 cautioned that there has been very little substantial research actually examining whether violent game use causes lethal violence. But several other studies have put forth evidence in favor of the negative influences of gaming. One, by the Interactive Games and Entertainment Association, found that children who were constantly exposed to violent multimedia were more likely than other children to engage in aggressive behavior when placed in a conflict situation. One particularly notable study was done by Bushman and Anderson in 2002. They obtained 224 undergraduate psychology students as participants and randomly assigned them to play either a violent or non-violent game for 20 minutes. After this, they were individually asked to interpret several ambiguous stories. The study found that those who play violent video games for just 20 minutes were more likely to assume that a potential conflict situation would be handled aggressively. There was an increase in aggressive content in thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Their conclusion was simple, but somewhat chilling. The more you make someone think aggressively, the more they'll interpret other things aggressively. It seems obvious at first, but connecting aggressive behavior to cognitive processes can both explain aggression and also provide ways to manage it. It was a significant finding. This eventually led Bushman and Anderson to develop what's now known as the General Aggression Model, or GAM. Simply put, it's a theory that suggests that exposure to violence, in this case of video games, increases the likelihood of someone perceiving a situation as aggressive. Their model teases out other factors that influence an aggressive personality, such as aggressive beliefs and attitudes, aggressive behavior scripts, and even desensitization to aggression. One strength of the general aggression model is that it uses both a social and cognitive basis to explain why people might be more likely to interpret neutral situations as hostile, or even harmful actions as being intentional. When you've been primed with aggression, suddenly everything starts to look red. In the next video lesson, we'll look at the effect of advertising and social media when it comes to influencing aggression.